Real Knights, Dog and Honor. Posted by Andras, European Union, Hungary. This concept is that honesty is essential to success of social relationships. Loyalty is not an empty word, and I find countless proofs of it. This is also part of the Code of Honor. Homo sapiens, in fact, has seduced the dog because of his loyalty, honor, and this day because he is ready to sacrifice his life at any time. And for many, unfortunately, this can be a difficult and moral question. Content. Sense of justice. 1. 2. Emotional balancing. 3. Real Knights. 4. Code of Honor. Motto. Your dog is ready to sacrifice his life at any time, and you for him, Konrad Lorenz. And if you have no principles, you are nobody. Charles de Gaulle. Well, yes, can a dog and animal be honest? This is a question for which the answer is essentially obvious, but is not if you think it true. When I started writing this article, I was aware of how wide and delicate my subject was. It has long been of concern to this purely human concept, this noble word, honor, called animals but considered valid, while collecting the related material and evidence out of curiosity. As the writer is always curious, I asked quite a few people, mostly laymen and outsiders, what their opinion was about it. Well, there were some who agreed with me saying they could, but there were also some who said no. This word cannot be considered valid for dog ether, and so called an animal and pure anthropomorphism would be so wholly human. But of all the reviews, I liked the saying of the small master of Naples mastiff, Zsófi, 11, because when I asked him, "Do you think the dog can be honest?" Of course you can. Everything can be dog that is a human. In fact, maybe even more sometimes. 1. A sense of justice. But before we go into detail about this inherited, acquired trait, let us try to find the root of this concept, the so-called sense of justice. I am convinced that dog's sense of justice is as advanced as that of children, and it's common knowledge that children's sense of justice is more advanced than that of adults. It is clear to all practicing parents, for example, if there are several children in one environment, say brothers and kindergarten companions, you are not advised to take it with any of them. Not sugar, chocolate must be given to each of them because if one is missed, or worse, only one, it can create serious conflicts within the group, that is, between siblings and kindergarten mates. If adults do not realize this, or if they are not interested in speaking up, then the little ones themselves will provide in the true and equal distribution. And they take away the chocolate for the exception, or what happens to those who have not. The situation is similar in dogs. Jazz, an old English setter bitch over the age of 10, has often been given drugs that she was happy to take, swallowed by hand sometimes with a slight grimace after some chewing. But he was happy to do it because he loved it, if in any form but I deal with it made me happy. He was eager to take the pills no matter how bitter until I noticed once that my other 3 dogs were watching him stiffly and enviously. That is not good for you guys, I told them, but they didn't really believe it. And to avoid further conversations, I was forced to give them a quarter of a pill to show how bad it was. Well, they didn't think it was bad. If Jazz eats, so do they. They coughed, chewed it, swallowed the bad taste pill just to keep them out of the distribution. So later I was forced to get the placebo pill similar to the original medicine but ineffective I gave them when the Jazz got it. Don't go away with their Peters, be dissatisfied, and so the fair distribution will be complete. I knew them so much, I knew that if and didn't do that, Jazz would be excommunicated and maybe even pulled in for him. But that's how we avoided the trouble. Order and justice were restored. Of course, we did the same with big walks and executions. Anyone who knows how difficult it is go with more dogs will often need to be taken separately, and those who remain at home will then have to be taken back or somehow reconciled. But during my dog psychological practice or at house training, I experienced essentially the same thing, where there were more dogs but only one of them sooner or later the other or the other sometimes had to be attend classes, which was actually an interesting program for them. They can't be left out of it, and their sense of justice dictated that they also had the benefit of the other dog, occupation learning, walking, etc. 2. Emotional balancing. Okay, so let's go. 2. Emotional balancing. Of course, this sense of justice can be understood in other ways. Those dog professionals who look at the spiritual world of dogs much more strictly than I do with an objective eye, I think cooler and with less affection, say that this is nothing more than simple selfishness. An unbiased dog, as the folk saying goes, that is, the animal does these things because it is simply selfish and wise. Although I know selfish and wise people, but since this is all about the dogs, let's look at two examples that refute this. That is to satisfy his sense of justice the dog can give, not just so-called take away. My brother, my other old English setter dog, regularly gave part of his dinner to the young dog bitch Babuci, in Hungarian English baby, in the weeks when the dogs was new to us and lean. They found his moored at his bus stop. So brother gave the food, not the babuzi. The setter finished earlier and stepped aside, let that little girl come to eat. He looked at him with dreamy eyes. We tried to give the dog more for than but Öcsi, in English brother, still gave part of his dinner, so the dog kid literally liked himself to his feet, which of course is not always beneficial for a dog of this size, can easily get stomach twist. Or Gina, the mother of Cane Corso, has always allowed her freshly weaned puppies to eat for weeks. In fact, if their dogs were loved that day, they would rather give up and give them the world. But she is a pretty tough bitch anyway, and before she didn't really like being undistributed while eating. Disturbed while eating, yes. Alright, objective experts say this is how the dog behaves and jealously when it screams and laments not being taken away for a walk. Well, of course, he is jealous. Like no doubt, it can be selfish and irate, as well as selfless and honest. This is selected by your individual and sometimes your case. And so jealous is not necessarily just a bad thing. You have to think about why the dog is like that. It is not selfish, but only a senseless righteousness that dictates it, because he feels unjustly pushed into the background even though he has done his best to be a good dog. So-called jealousy, therefore, can be understood as some form of sense of justice, because its purpose is to equalize, that is, distribute emotions properly, justly. My specific opinion is someone has a sense of justice. They are also susceptible to call it honest behavior, which a more stable form of justice is one soul, like a cleaned, straight land without any zigzags. Well, really, in anthropomorphism, it is appropriate to consider this concept also valid for animals. And are dogs really basically honest beings? Or maybe they can't be, because honor is still a purely human ration. Real Knights. 3. Bernie is terribly dog and determined, sharp-planning male dog. This is Serbian Shepherd dog. By the way, She is beautiful, so wonderful, muscular, huge, with a silver coat, and choleric, proud, bright, free, exactly what a real area guard must be. And almost everyone is afraid of it. I am right to add because it's very stubborn. That's the kind that she is. But she was a girlfriend of a little German shepherd bitch who was not afraid of her. In fact, sometimes he was almost terrified, beaten, rushed, overthrown, which, of course, was not difficult, as Bernie almost fainted from love, affection, literally bouncing on his back and head. The mighty and white Sharplaninats tolerated a silently never biting buck and occasionally maining when the little bitch proved too hard. The male tolerates the periodic aggressiveness of the female in full passivity, hysterics, writes Conrad Lawrence in his book Aggression. And so it was with Bernie. A normal dog will never bite its female companion, continues Lawrence. Of course, the bitch often misses it. And all of these include the strange fact that the little German shepherd was no longer really female because, for health reasons, she had her womb removed and could never fire again. But Bernie still respected her. Or there is Max, the sometimes very brutality Rottweiler male. There are already 2 people on his run biting them, but when he meets a bitch, he often completely. Love kills the demon, says Oliver Stone is in his film Born the Murderers. A big portrayal. That is reality it. Max is very nice, real angel when he meets a woman because she loves girls. And I love him too. Then there is Ataman, the extremely dominant Moscow watching dog. Was a really beautiful and wonderful dog and very muscular. He was a real knight. She treats our females, dog and the main children, all members of the family. But he is very dominant over other males and extremely determined and talks if an alien man appears in his territory or attacks his own. In such cases, you will not even know it. He will become a true fighter, and no opponent can stop for a long time. But after each action, it was so soft and gentle with the children and every member of the family that it was almost a miracle. Or is it no wonder that they would not have been beaten even if they had somehow intervened between him and the attacker during an action, attack, or fight? Ataman always knows who stands in front of him and has one true knighthood. He never attacks first. Once upon a time, her fellow Moscow watchdog, his sister, female Alexa, struck her for controversial bone. Well, since being attacked by a fake pregnant Moscow bitch was quite fierce, Ataman was forced to fight more precisely for his own psychical integrity and somewhat for his pride. But he didn't bite her, just pushed her away, who always bounced on her. But that man didn't hurt him, thought he could have, twice as big and powerful as Alexa. Lawrence again writes, "Don't hit the woman, the kid, well, as far as the human being is concerned. Said this is only limited maxima. Anthropomorphism to you, but animals are nouns for a whole host species where, under normal circumstances, this can never occur." And since one of the main criteria of honor is that we do no hurt a woman and the weaker, we can say the animals maintained in the examples above are truly honest in the human and noble sense of the word. So this concept is not purely human but can be transposed to most social mammals. After all, this concept of honor is essential to the success of social relationships. 4. Code of Honor. Honesty, a sense of justice. But what are these knightly virtues? What are these social inhibitions, in Lawrence's words, which are collectively worded? Can we call it a code of honor? So we don't hurt the weaker women, females, children, puppies. In fact, we protect them. And most of all, we protect our own family, our pack, our friends, our tribe. Bernie, the Sharplani nuts, was once very upset when a German Whistler, a fur coat, seriously hurt a little Dachshund boy who was not Bernard's friend. He was simple, defenseless, and weaker than the German Whistler. So we tolerate the other if it is not hostile to us, even if you are of the same sex. If you are a competitor, we don't attack if doesn't. In fact, if we have to fight in that defeat, we will no longer attack. Everyone knows Lawrence's example of so-called bite inhibition, the reverse of the neck, and many reject it. However, it usually works in normal cases. This is one of the basic dimensions of fair behavior. And the other, don't hurt your. Never. In fact, try to do as much good as possible for them at your level. At the dog level, this means belonging together and, if necessary, self-sacrifice. I do not need to explain this in detail how a real dog behaves when its owner is in serious danger. And he always worried. You have a sense of the responsibility. Where is it? Where is it? Where is not the pack together? What are you doing? Something wrong? Why the man comes to us? Are you sure you have no bad intentions? Babucci, baby, the Great Dane, sent me these 7 questions in a few seconds in his peculiar language. With a glance, gestures, and faint yawn on a late summer evening when it was full moon and people were almost crazy. The pubs and discotheques were full, and maybe all of them felt like last night's night of the year. Accordingly, people behaved aggressively and of course we could not avoid the accident. There may be enough reason for something that dogman somewhere, in this case, me and Babucci, baby. Of course they made us four. And the Great Dane fight for me. Somehow he was always positioned between me and the attackers, covering me with his body. Luckily, no one was hurt in the end, but we beat the guys. Well, this him is called a bodyguard. And this bodyguard only protects from the attack. And this is one of the main attributes of honor, true love. Loyalty is not an empty word, writes Lawrence, and I find countless proof of this. This also belongs to the corner of honor. The mysterious thing about loyalty, the dog is definitive joining with a single owner. The writer of this article has had it once or twice, and I can assure you that greater spiritual happiness is less on earth. Perhaps only man to man goes beyond that, but is also on earth and a lifetime, and feeds on similar grounds loyalty, perseverance, love to death. And the one who loves will protect you at the cost of his, her life. When your dog swears on oath of elegance to you, it's not really spiritual thing. The outside observer may not even know what it is all about, as it all about gaze changes, aggressive moves, but you and know very well what's happening. Jack London described it well in his book The Call of the Wild, when Buck made vow of loyalty to John Thornton, his owner, and their hearts radiated from eyes of them. Well, yes, heart, true knight by the code of honor, is brave, and only good feelings fill his heart. Brave as dogs, says William Wallace in movie Braveheart. After all, many readers may wonder, are dogs different creatures, the humans? This is not a question to ask. They are just sentient beings like us living in a slightly different dimension. So the question is, are dogs more conventional than humans? The answer is yes. Their morals and habits are much more rigid and obligatory than human beings, says Lawrence. And now doubt it has been proven that dogs have the qualities we humans call honor. Although they will probably call it otherwise, above all is reasonable because this type behavior is in the long run a better investment than nasty and dishonesty. Investing in the survival of the pack and also the so-called prosperity of individuals. The flock holds together like the sun and the shadow, and its members protect each of other for life and death. Well, we have discussed these noble qualities and principles in great detail so far, but everyone should know that no one can ever be perfect. maybe in just the principle itself. As with humans, dogs also have wrongs, and sometimes they are extremely big. But in my opinion, the causes of this behavior are always attributably to the animal owner or the surrounding human environment. However, most dogs are real knights or ladies, and that is what humans love. Homo sapiens, in fact, has groomed the dog for his loyalty, honor, and this day, as he says, you are ready to sacrifice your life at any time, and for you. Unfortunately, for many, this may be as difficult and moral question, but it really can only be answered with a quote from Nietzsche. Always strive to love you better, never be the second. Once more, always strive to love you better, never be the second. Written by Andras, the first Hungarian dog psychologist. In the years 1998, 2007, and 2017. Thanks for listening.